Did you know that in July of this year, the Federal Reserve is introducing its own instant payment system called FedNow? And FedNow is going to allow people and businesses to be able to send and receive instant payments through participating financial institutions.
Financial institutions provide their own access interface to their customers, such as a mobile app or online banking portal. The FedNow service operates between financial institutions,
such as JP Chase and American Savings. It's going to be run like a Cash App and a PayPal, except it's supposed to be safer. Of course it is. Now, you might have seen there's a lot of speculation around FedNow, as many people believe it is a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency, but it's not. It's not a central bank digital currency because it's not actually being backed by the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank in the United States. It's being created by the Federal Reserve, but it's being backed by commercial banks, like I just said, JP Chase, American Savings. But with all that said, I still feel like it is laying the groundwork for a CBDC to be introduced. And I also feel like it's giving the feds an easier way to monitor and control our money. So FedNow is a FedNo for me.
The Federal Reserve has announced that its FedNow instant 24/7 payment network will be fully launched in July. And here in the United States, President Joe Biden, in March of 2022, issued Executive Order 14067, which facilitates the development of digital assets, including CBDCs. A CBDC is issued and regulated by a nation's monetary authority or central bank, obliterating financial privacy and anonymity.
It's programmable, meaning it is programmable for the individual. So in other words, if the government decides that they're going to, we need to cut down on fatties, then my digital coin will not allow me to buy fatty foods. I wouldn't be able to go to McDonald's. I'm using this as an example. There is not, anything in the works to do this, except this is what programmable means. They can program it so if they say, you know what, nobody's going to work, you're not an essential employee, your coin will not buy gas.
You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
We are living in a tyrannical situation where there's only 2 clicks left. When you are required to have digital ID to move around and have a life, and when cashless central bank digital currencies are the only way you can buy and sell, at that point you've lost your freedom. If you follow the breadcrumbs to 2030, anyone can look up the UN 2030 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, Britain specifically will have no commercial passenger aircraft leaving the country. You will not be able to leave. There will be no ships leaving the country. You will not own private transport. You will have a digital ID to do everything, and you will only have electronic money with which to transact. I would say at that point you are a slave.
We're hosted by the United Nations, and we are an alliance of governments and companies and international organizations that are each committed. Each has to commit before they join the alliance to moving away from cash to some form of digital option. We've got to solve this problem. And we have to solve it because we care about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Did you know that every single government in the world has committed to these? Every single government to agree to these. The government of Norway, the government of Australia, the government of Ethiopia, the government of Rwanda. And the timeline is 10 years from now.
Here's some news you might have missed. The president of Sri Lanka flees after protesters storm the capital. The prime minister of Italy has resigned from office. Ecuador is facing economic collapse. Argentina is facing economic collapse. There have been protests all over the Netherlands by Dutch farmers because of their government's manufactured nitrogen crisis. Boris Johnson resigned from office when Bill Gates was in the country. The prime minister of Pakistan was removed from office when Bill Gates was in the country. Panama is facing economic collapse. And now in South Africa, there are protests because of their economic collapse, and people have died from it. If you don't think the Great Reset is happening, here's your proof.
When the collapse comes, the FDIC admits that they will send out an announcement. So get ready for this. They admit they will send out an announcement and they will tell us not to use money. This is how that's going to go down. They tell us that they plan on telling us on a Friday night See if you can guess why they would tell us on a Friday night that the banking system has collapsed.
There are a lot of things we've been thinking about, and what we want to hear from you today is what you think what the priorities would be in order to go about setting expectations appropriately in public about how we would execute Title II, so that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night, that people are in a position to receive it, understand it, and say, yeah, that works.
You think is coming is a recession. What your crazy friends might say to you is coming is maybe a depression. You'd be mistaken. Those are lies. What is coming is a collapse of the dollar.
For the people who work numbers, I'm giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses. You better do what you must do.
Because if we continue to go down the path, you're going to lose all of your economic freedom, and economic power will be centralized in the hands of the very, very few.
And I think there's a lot of conversation about a tax on freedom, a tax on democracy, right? And you look at all those things. Do you think this is one of the greatest threats that we face in the country, is the digitization of the dollar by the Fed?
Yes, 100%. And it's moving along a parallel track with the de-dollarization movement, where you have countries now that are dumping the dollar. It's moving pretty fast. All Saudi Arabia has to do is say, you know what, we're going to start trading oil in different currencies rather than the dollar, to have a complete global and certainly American economic collapse.
During which chapter in the book of Revelation we're living out today, I would direct your attention to Revelation 13, where it talks about the mark of the beast. Yeah, the Biden administration is rolling out a funding program called Chips for America. Which Chips for America, you may ask? Well, while we were all distracted this past summer, our Congress passed a bill called the Chips and Science Act, which includes major funding and research for semiconductor microchips. And yeah, that includes biotechnology. Yeah, that's happening. So Biden and Harris announced $39 billion in incentives for these companies to produce chips for everything, including your brain and your hands, just like Jeff Bezos, Musk, and Gates are all working on projects to implant chips in people's brains. So yeah, the hour's getting late, folks. Don't get chips in your hands. Don't get them in your head. Don't get them anywhere.
City is stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever, the Smart Mark. Throw your other devices away, because the Smart Mark is more than just a phone. It's part of you. Use it as cash. Book your travel, and even shoot video. Distribution points are all over the city. And don't let the lines discourage you. The Rook Unlimited Smart Mark is worth the wait. I never realized how wonderful technology could make me feel.